So in this video, I'm going to walk you through 3 simple steps to dial in your reverbs the right way, so your vocals sound clean, controlled, and professional. So the very first steps to understanding how to add the reverb to vocals the right way is to first of all understand the settings that are within the reverb. So the very first setting we have right here is the decay. As you can see, this is actually the biggest spot in the Valhalla Vintage Rev. All right. And what this does is that it controls how long the reverb tail lasts before heading into silence. So as you can see, we have it at 4.63 seconds right here. If we have to go ahead and reduce this, you notice that the reverb sounds very boxed in, like as if you're in a very, very tight space.
I've been by myself, returning to the dark.
And gradually, if I increase it,
Taunted by my past, it's all up in my mind.
You just notice that the reverb tends to wash in and then blend together when we start to increase the decay time. And the next one, we have the pre-delay. And this is another very, very crucial point. And what this does is that it adds a gap, very, very little gap between the dry sound and when the reverb starts. For example, if we have to turn the pre-delay down, the reverb starts immediately the main vocal starts.
I've been by myself, returning to the dark.
But it's always a good practice to, add a little bit of pre-delay to, allow your vocal, the main word of the vocal to, come out very well. Okay, so let's just go ahead and add a bit of pre-delay.
I've been by myself, returning to the dark.
Next up, we have the size. And what this does is that it just defines the perceived physical size of the space being simulated. All right, so as you can see right here, we have the size as 100%. We can actually reduce the size and it just simulates the reverb to, fit a smaller space. So with 100% size, we have this.
I've been by myself.
While with 0% size, we have this.
I've been by myself, returning to the dark.
And next up, we have the mix. And this is another very, very important settings for you to be aware of. All right. And what this does is that it controls the balance between, the dry signal and the reverb signal itself. So most of the time you find this at 100%, especially when you're using an aux channel. We'll get to that later on in this video. All right. But if you are adding your reverb on the same channel, okay, you can now blend in between the mix to, blend in that dry signal and the reverb. Okay, so a 0% mix will have no reverb at all, while a 100% mix will have totally 100% of the reverb and none of those dry signals coming through. Let's just go ahead and then see how this works.
I've been by myself.
So you can see when it's at 0, there's absolutely no reverb at all. So now the mix is 100% and we are on the same insert where the vocal is. It sounds like this.
I've been by myself, returning to the dark.
And you notice that as we bring the mix down, the dry vocal now starts to blend in together. So this is just a good way to find that balance, between the wet and the dry signal.
I've been by myself, returning to the dark.
All right, and next up we have the EQ. And this simply just does exactly what it says. We have a high cut and we have a low cut EQ. And this does shapes the frequency of the reverb. So you can set an high cut right here to whatever hertz you want it. And you can also set the low cut to whatever hertz you want it. All right, and next up we have the diffusion. This controls how dense or sparse the reflections are. So in simple terms, let's just say a higher diffusion blends all the reverbs together and then makes the words blend together. But when you reduce the diffusion, it now begins to sound like an echo. So you can literally pick out some of the words that are being bounced around. In some plugins you might just have one knob for the diffusion, but in Valhalla Vintage Rev you have the early and you have the late. So if you set both early and late to 0%, this is how it sounds.
I've been by myself, returning to the dark.
So you can hear how that, how that sounds. All right, but if we set everything back to 100%, it just blends everything together.
I've been by myself, return into the dark.
And over here we have damping. And what damping just simply does is that it controls how quickly the high frequencies die off in the reverb tail. So less damping can equal a brighter, shiny reverb, while more damping equals like a darker, warmer reverb. And lastly, we have this modulation right here, MOD mod, and this adds kind of like a subtle pitch variation to keep the reverb from sounding static. So you can just add some subtle pitch variation on the reverb itself. All right, so if you have to increase this to the highest, you can also increase the depth of the of the variation. As you can see right here, it controls the amount of the modulation within the reverb itself.
I've been by myself, returning to the dark.
You can see it actually sounds way off at some point. All right, but that is what the modulation does. All right, so these are just some of the major settings that are within the reverb, and knowing this is going to give you way more artistic control of your reverb itself. All right, so that is the first step in understanding how to control reverb for vocals. And now the next step is actually very, very crucial, and it's very, very important that you know this because it gives you way more advantage and way more control of the reverb than the settings within the reverb, and that is simply just using an aux channel for your reverbs. And this opens a whole lot more that you can do with the reverb. And if you don't know how to set up an aux channel, it's actually just very, very simple to do that within FL Studio. I actually have a detailed video on how to set up aux channels. All right, but for a quick one, it's just you select an empty channel, then you load up a reverb on that channel. Then all you need to do is from here is select your main dry signal, and then just click on this arrow right here, and then that's all. That is technically all you need to do to have your reverb as an aux channel. So once you do that, you have to silence this one.
I've been by myself.
It routes the signal over to the reverb. On the aux channel, you always want your mix to be at 100% because you want the reverb to be fully the reverb itself, and none of the dry signals should come through. The way you blend the reverb on the aux channel is not on the reverb plugin itself, but on this dial right here. So what this controls is the volume of the dry signal that is being sent to the reverb. First of all, you can actually sidechain the reverb to the vocal, which is very, very crucial. So if I'm going to go ahead and load up a fruity limiter right here, okay, load up a compressor, and then now whenever the dry signal comes in, it ducks down the reverb a bit for the dry vocal to cut through better.
I've been by myself, returning to the dark.
And the reason why we're searching a reverb is just simply to just allow the main vocal to cut through the mix so that the reverb doesn't, get blended in with the vocal. It's also similar to what the pre-delay does, but this just gives you way more control of how you want it to be. And then aside a sidechain, you can also add way more effects, like way more effects on the reverb. Like for example, on the reverb we had the EQ where we had the high cut and the low cuts, all right? But in this case, we can actually add our own EQ and, fine tune it exactly how we want it to be. So we can, do everything that we want to do on the reverb like a normal EQ, like as if we're working on the vocal itself. So it just gives you, it's just for more control and for more precise editing that we go over all these settings. Now, what you can do most cases is you can actually add another reverb. Sometimes you add a short decay reverb, and you can add a longer decay reverb depending on the taste of what you want to do. You can also add, that is the beauty about aux channels, is that you can actually have multiple aux for different reverbs and different delays and different extra effects like that. All right, guys, so that'll be it for this video. If you did like this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and also enable notifications so that you don't miss out when the next video drops. Thanks, guys, for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.